So what people have done for the last 10 years are what they'll likely be doing for the next 10 years. And a lot of the things that we see are just systems that have been in place and have worked according to old rules for a long time.
Hmm.
And we need to sometimes we need to just adjust those systems. It's not about an intent. Honestly, a lot of times it's about safety and laziness more than anything else.
Yeah.
And across the board, we need to companies need to expand the talent pool so that they can expand their perspectives. And sometimes that's about more ethnicity and more gender, but it's really more about diversity of experience. It's not about diversity of a specific character trait. Because there's nothing, as you said, if a person is specifically from Uganda and
Hmm.
they've dealt with those tragedies and so on and so forth, then they specifically provide a certain perspective. If a black guy is from, an affluent neighborhood and he got into Harvard, he's not going to provide that perspective. So it's not about a black guy.
Right.
It's about finding these specific voices, but to get specifically different voices, sometimes you have to go to different places. And that means diversity across the board, not diversity of type.
Hmm.
And that's what storytelling is all about. It's about that. They say write what you know. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to get different people who know different things.
And there's some amazing stuff going on in television right now in that regard. I mean, my favorite comedy right now is Blackish.
Oh, that's a
Absolutely,
great show.
love it.
Yeah.
But the
Mine is Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but Blackish is very good.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, different thing. I mean, to me, what I love about Blackish is because they're telling their story.
Yeah.
It's not a Jewish producer hiring a black lead, right? Which is what the sitcoms were historically. It's like you
Mhm.
said, the same old systems. The thing that Blackish does so brilliantly is those are just based on conversations the creator Kenya Barris has had with his family or with his
Yeah.
friends, and they can come at an issue from different perspectives. They're all black people. They're
Yeah.
all opinions in the black community. A term I hate
Oh, for
because
sure.
the
Yeah.
it's like the sisterhood.
Yeah.
Like, no, all women do not have to agree for a point to be valid, right? But they just did a beautiful episode on taking your husband's name and the
Hmm.
different perspectives of, the Rainbow Johnson, the wife on the show, Tracy Ellis Ross, brilliant in that
Yeah, she's great.
role. But the whole thing was her name was Johnson and her husband's name, Dre, was Johnson, but she didn't take his name. It was brilliantly absurd in the only way sitcoms
Yeah.
could be. But then his mom gets up there and says, "Oh no, you change your name because that shows a guy bothered to marry you." And that was a truth bomb
Right.
that unless you have lived a particular Black American experience, I don't think you can understand.
Hmm.
Not as likely. I mean, I'm sure there is overlap with poverty.
And see, that's the juice, though,
Yeah.
right? Is generally, I feel like most human beings are struggling with issues of making sure they're fed, make sure they're clothed, make sure they have a roof over their head, make sure they can have enough sex, have enough toys to play with.
Yeah, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, we all want these things.
Hmm.
But the nuance of the combination of a universal experience
Hmm.
and a nuanced specific experience
Hmm.
is what makes stories great.
Yeah.
And here's the thing that I think people miss when they look so hard at certain things like being a woman or being a black guy, Asian woman,
Hmm.
whatever it may be, being gay. Everyone is always looking at a story that is in some part not about them.
Right.
Why do you think this factor is so much more important than all of these other factors of identification? I don't think they're that much more important. And I think if you look at media across the board, across time, if you take everything into account, you take video games, movies, so on and so forth, people have proven that they will watch stories or read stories or play stories that are not about people that look like them all the time, that are not
Hmm.
about people that like the same kind of sex they like all the time, that are not about people that are from the same places, the same economic strata that they're from all the time. People enjoy stories. They enjoy the human experience. They enjoy it when they can live vicariously through it, and they enjoy it from a more voyeuristic perspective. This metric of gender identification, racial or ethnic, identification, I think it is all largely nonsense.
I I think that it's important in terms of real life role models.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, let me apply a caveat. When there is a deficit of representation, then it becomes important because people are being excluded and left out.
Yes.
But when there's ample representation, nobody cares anymore.
Yeah, well, that's the social experiment that is New York City
Yes.
in a nutshell, right? I mean, there's so many. I New York City is one of the American cities I actually feel at home at.
Hmm.
Once I get used to there being
Welcome
so
aboard.
many people,
Yeah, a lot
but
of us.
I mean, you sit in a restaurant, it's all colors of the rainbow,
Yes.
including hair. You
Yep.
know, yeah, and that's what my experience as an urban Torontonian has been. Is that is natural to me. I go down to small town America or even places like Los Angeles that are more racially striated. I won't necessarily say segregated, but it is. I mean, there are black
Yeah.
neighborhoods and there are white neighborhoods, and it's very clear.
Hmm.
The U.S. South, parts of Florida, Georgia, it's all like that. That makes me uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Whereas, but that's my normalized experience. Somebody else is going to feel like it's a different other,
Hmm.
right? I mean, multiculturalism is part of myself. It's the way it
Yeah.
was, it's the climate I was raised in. For somebody who's lived in a very homogenous society, that is different. And I think games are a great way to bridge that gap
Yes,
to
absolutely.
me. But, it's like you were saying, and this is the difficulty with art, is when it's science, we have a scientific method. You
Hmm.
know, everything runs based on a checklist,
Yeah.
and it's almost like there's so much money in games and to an extent comics now, because you get an intellectual property that gets optioned as a movie.
Right.
Boom, right?
Yeah. The
And
amount of creative real estate there is even bigger than the dollars.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, the what's good about that is people are creating new characters again. Everything doesn't need to be leveraged by Batman or Wolverine,
Absolutely.
right? But on the downside, everything is being politicized to a degree that not only art can achieve, but I know from my background, people who don't go to Harvard, Yale,
Hmm.
Columbia, these Ivy League schools, they can't access media on this paradigm of um, problematic.
Right. Right.
Problematic to me is one of those
Right.
$1 million words. It's like
Absolutely.
you have a piece of paper with gold leaf on it and a seal and your name on it somewhere, and you do not realize that you are in the minority in
Hmm.
that experience, especially in America, where your public education system and
Yeah,
is
it's pretty bad.
is garbage, and your post secondary is expensive.
Yeah, and
And
also not super great all the time.
no, well, it's funny to me what is taught in college down there, because it's some stuff that I did in high school, but that is a detour. To me, it's that I want to make art for the people. I think everybody wants to make art for themselves as a kid.
Right.
When you get into this
Yes.
superhero type stuff. And so to me, the art that was meaningful when I was a kid growing up was dance hall reggae. and
Uh-huh.
and people look at me strangely when I show a fondness for Elephant Man because of his anti-gay statements that he's somewhat walked
Right.
back from now. But that was in the dance halls, like
Hmm.
that was the escapist entertainment. It was in Living Color, which
Yeah.
was a brilliant sketch comedy show.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, the thing to In Living Color to me was that was comedy that was relevant to me. I
Hmm.
watched Saturday Night Live or some of the other, or even SCTV. I couldn't relate.
Yeah.
That was considered, smart comedy. Whereas In Living Color was seen as sort of broad and
Yeah.
shticky, and I mean, the fact that the big breakout star from the show was the one white guy is telling. I mean, Jim Carrey did not do the best work on that show, but he was the one that went on to make $20 million a movie. And I
To be
look at
fair, Damon Wayans got his opportunities.
he did, and he kind of blew them.
Hmm.
It's true, and I mean, yes,
This kid's doing great.
yeah, and there are production background, like
Yeah.
the back end from the stuff
Oh
that's gone
yeah, yeah,
on
for sure,
has
absolutely.
been meaningful.
The real breakout star was J Lo.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. But I mean, you see. We tried to go see Barbershop 2 on the weekend, and it's in 7 theaters. And
Mhm.
they're all, it's like, oh, they're in Scarborough, they're in Malvern, they're
See,
in.
now that's something that I do think needs to change,
Yeah.
right? Because I think the problem of art will eventually solve itself because you can't stop human nature.
Yeah, but
And going back to trust the stories, invest in the work, the more you censor art, the more you create a demand for true art.
it's
And
almost like art and politics are having this money problem,
oh, for sure, for
right?
sure.
Because of this distribution thing. Like, why should I have
Well,
to?
and that's the key, right? The one thing I think that needs to stop is I don't want to go to a neighborhood and see different stuff from a value standpoint. The cultural specificity, sure,
Mhm,
because people in that neighborhood produce a certain product, so there are more stores of X.
mhm.
But I don't want to go to a neighborhood and say I want to see Zootopia, but I have to go to Manhattan to see Zootopia,
Right.
and then I show it in Brooklyn. That would be terrible,
Well, it
you
defeats the
know.
purpose of film as a populist medium. Like, these are supposed to be
Absolutely.
mass release products, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where that's the old systems we're talking about because
Mhm.
sometimes the metric is used, well, in the past leading up to now, this has not been profitable over here in this way. And sometimes that's because you've always done things a certain way, and often people have not done the research
Mhm.
to truly see what different cultures really like.
Mhm.
Everyone is always surprised when I tell them how deeply geeky 80s era crack Brooklyn was.
Yeah.
Like super geeky. I had like a pass generally in the neighborhood because I could draw Spider-Man. You know what I mean? That's how beloved Spider-Man was. Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's working on Black Panther now, they sold
Mhm.
like
Mhm. Mhm.
almost half a million copies or something. He said, and I know he didn't mean it this way, but a quote that he had was basically, unless I'm misquoting him, that he wants the Black Panther to be somewhat similar to Peter Parker for Black people. And I know what he means by that.
I know what he means by that
What
too,
he
but
means is he wants there to be Black representation that's as powerful as Peter Parker.
he wants there to be a character that is from the source,
Yeah,
a,
that's as
a black
cool
man.
and
Yeah.
blah blah.
Yeah.
And that's all fine. But what could be misconstrued from that is that Peter Parker is different for black people than they are for everyone else. He's not. Black people, trust me, embrace Peter Parker. Listen, he's a kid from Queens living with his grandma,
Yeah.
like who's kind of nerdy and he's getting bullied at school and so on and so forth. That there's a lot of black people that can identify with this kid. Okay.
There's with us it was Superman,
Yeah.
right? The idea of passing,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
The
Right. Right.
idea of adapting your mannerisms to blend in and to become that mild mannered, code word for white. It was the Jewish immigrant experience that they
Sure.
were putting down on that page. But you had the Superman bling
Yeah.
in my old neighborhood. It wasn't so much Spider-Man, it was Superman, but that's because Marvel is such a New York thing.
That's true too.
I mean, we were talking before we ran. The vision of Hell's Kitchen that people see on Netflix Daredevil is not Netflix.
Just, yeah.
It's not Hell's Kitchen now. It's Hell's Kitchen in 1985.
Right, with cell phones.
Right, with cell phones, yeah. But I think it's funny that they don't even treat it as a borough of New York. They always a Hell's Kitchen. This is my city. Like
Right.
it's
Hell's
it's a
Kitchen is not that big.
it is a fictional place, right? I mean, I couldn't figure out how a
Yeah.
guy like Luke Cage wouldn't just walk by in the background where Daredevil, because that
Well, he
he's
would have to. They would go to the same coffee shop.
yeah, and I mean, I found that very artificial in that regard.
It
However,
is, but in like that's on purpose.
yeah, but it's like you were saying though, people connect to characters for different reasons. I mean, I know for me, 80 shit was Thundercats.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it was because the main guy, Lion-O, had red hair.
All right.
And it was Anne of Green Gables, Pippi Longstocking, both of which I'm like, shoot me, And then there was this action-driven leader.
Which goes back to what we were saying, right?
Yeah.
If every character that's cool is blonde,
Yeah.
and every character that has red hair is like wily or crazy or eccentric or something like that, then when a red-haired hero comes along, you latch onto it.
Yeah.
But if there were 10 Lion-Os all over the place, you'd probably put them in with the others and like them fine. But the other factors would become more important. over
But
time in terms of character identification.
we talk about this a lot, and I wonder, as you're developing Romulus, if you've encountered this, the reality that when it's a brown hair McNormal pants,
Hmm.
you don't have to explain it. That's sort of the default. When character creation pops up in most people's heads, the first thing they start with is somebody who looks a lot like Nathan Drake or
Yes. Oh,
y-
for sure.
you
The
know,
Jason kind of thing.
and everything else somehow needs to be explained. And there's been a lot of talk about this because that's sort of faulty.
Oh, for sure.
I
Yeah,
think the
it's
big
the idea that white as default is a fallacy,
well,
and it's something we need to get away from.
it's not just white as default. It's white,
It's very
male,
specific. Yeah.
brown
Yep.
hair,
Straight.
a certain build, heterosexual, cisgendered, about 30 years old.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
The default is Batman and Superman. And I mean, the big thing Frank Miller did with The Dark Knight was Batman can't be older than me. I mean, such a narcissistic, selfish motivation created a great story, right? He wanted to
Yeah.
age Batman 5 years. And in doing that, age Superman 5 years. And so all of a sudden, the paradigm, it became okay for a guy to be 35 and an action hero. And now we have Ben Affleck as Batman, in his 40s, approaching 50, and
Yeah.
he's allowed to be an action hero.
To be
Where,
fair, Ben looks great.
well, he does. I mean, and I thought he was great in the part. I mean, after seeing
Yeah.
Argo, I thought he was going to be good, but I think he really connected with that character in a meaningful way. But what concerns me about the way, and it's like you said, these old systems, is it all starts with brown hair McNormal pants. And people freak out when you question that paradigm. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're never going to have a character like Nathan Drake again. I think Nathan Drake is the perfect character for that story,
Yeah, for sure.
right? Because he's um, it's that explorer, that missionary, that conquistador story, and they're sort of replicating it as a rogue in the modern day.
Hmm.
But I don't think that, and I'd like to get your perspective on this from a creator where it's a team of two black men doing a book about a white woman, but that's so reductive. That's so
Well,
reductive a description of what you're
to be
doing.
fair, Ashlar is off-white.
Okay.
Her mother is white, and her father's not in the book, but she's darker than her mother, and we don't
Okay.
go into what she is because it's not important to the story at this point.
Right.
So that is that. Although her mother is white, and her mother is like a principal character, especially in the first issue,
Right.
where you see a lot of her, and she plays a role, going forward. But you are correct. That's reductive because really what it is you have two black guys who like to write and draw and play video games telling a story about an assassin. So before,
And this is it. I mean, I'm sure when you start doing press for the book, and this is where I'm sort of getting at, and I hate even asking this question,
no, please do.
but I'm asking the question. I'm getting on this subject because I'm sure people have gone about the whole thing, like, really, like you're two dudes telling a story about a woman. You had this opportunity to tell this story about a clearly non-white character. And I mean, the mixed race experience is an interesting one, that we're just starting to get into,
Mhm.
right? But it's almost like you don't get the diversity points for going there and
And
have.
that's something that mixed race people have to deal with, especially like very mixed race people. Like I'm slightly mixed race because my mom's Panamanian, so
Okay.
I'm half black, half Latino. So Miles Morales was the first character I'd seen in the history of fiction that had a similar heritage to myself. His grandmother's even named Gloria, and my grandmother's named Gloria. So that
Because
was
there are
like,
so many black Hispanic women named Gloria. I don't know
yeah,
why. It's like Rachel in the Jewish community. Yeah.
yeah.
But
So
yeah, no, it's
yeah,
and I mean that was there's a classic example, we were talking about this before we started going, of a black Hispanic character. The book launched with two white creators,
yeah.
and that is ambivalent. I mean, some people would say it's problematic, but from an artistic perspective, it's really not. It's just sort of like you couldn't get one person of color
Well, to
on the
be
book.
fair, like I mentioned before the call,
Mhm.
Dave Marquez drew a significant portion of that series,
Yeah,
like a
eventually, for
lot of
sure. Yeah.
issues of the Miles Morales stuff. So, and I think, and here's the thing though, They hired Dave because they liked his art.
Right.
You know, like they found Dave's art, they liked his art, and then they hired him. I like that.
Hmm.
I like that. You know, they're working on Miles Morales and they get a bunch of sketches from a bunch of different people and they don't care who did it.
Uh-huh.
That's what I want across the board. I don't care who you're writing.
Right.
You know,
Now,
if someone is Jewish with like Jewish heritage and they're writing a story about a Holocaust survivor and it sucks, and someone else is like, you know, some Latina woman from, you know,
yeah.
who's from like SoCal, and she's writing a Holocaust story and it's awesome because she's relating it metaphorically to other stuff she
Hmm.
knows, then she should write the book. And that's what we all want. Like we want more representation. We want them to expand the talent pool, but I don't want race like treated like height on a roller coaster.
Yeah. But
You
how
know?
do you trust the process when we know that there is institutionalized racism in the selection process? I mean, that's
Well,
undeniable.
the number one thing is creators have to create.
Okay.
You have to make stuff.
Right.
Like a lot of people want to tweet, they want to tumble, they
Hmm.
want to, you know, have all kinds of commentary on message boards and so on and so
Yeah.
Facebook or what have you, but they don't want to actually say fade in, exterior night,
Yeah.
and then fade out, here's your script. They don't want to say, you know, here's my layouts, here's my finished pages,
Yeah.
I'm sending them off to the colors for letters. That's what everyone needs to do. It really goes back to investing in storytelling, investing in your craft, investing in what you are good at, getting better at it. You can only make it a meritocracy after you have merit, you
See, do
know?
you think, because I know my experience is when I started doing precisely that, it's like I'm going to dump my own money, pay an artist, create a comic. Couldn't get a publisher. And
That's it, but here's the thing. Now, and I don't mean to cut you
no,
off.
no, go ahead.
I do want to pause you there because now we can do something about it. Now
Okay.
we can take the product and say, this product should be on the shelves. What is it about the system that's keeping this product off the shelves?
Oh, I see. So you're advocating let's reframe the issue by
Yeah,
actually getting something tangible that we can judge on its merits. Does this particular product written by, a non-privileged person deserve to be on the shelf as opposed to should products
exactly.
in
Because
general?
because what the abstract criteria leads to is an abstract hiring process, right? So now you can abstractly have diversity, but those diverse creators, you didn't put in the work to find the best of the best from that new diverse pool. You just got people that were diverse and also were there. And that doesn't help because now we've done two bad things, maybe even three. Now they're representing their various groups, which is wrong in my opinion. You don't represent women. You only represent Liana,
That's right. And
right?
this
So
is the other
yeah,
problem.
my art is not indicative of every Black Latino guy that's gonna show you art.
Right.
Some of them are gonna be good. Some of them are gonna suck. I don't know. Let's see the portfolio, and that is what we want across the board. We can recognize again abstractly. Well, there's a diversity problem. But the solution to that problem is through the honest work of storytelling and making things. And once you are making things and you still have a problem, now we can narrow down what is it in the infrastructure that's a roadblock for you, that's not a roadblock for a privileged person. And we can judge that on a case by case basis. Because at the end of the day, all creators are a minority,
Sure. Sure. They're
right?
artistic people. Yeah.
They're all in a much, much, much smaller group. So we can't treat it socio-politically the same way we treat laws.
Yeah.
And that's a conflation that I think we have too often. And this is why the censorship nomenclature is so ill put sometimes,
Yeah.
because laws are about fairness, making sure that everybody
Yes.
is judged by the same civil code. That's what censorship is for.
Yeah.
This social unrest, this social outrage, this kind of protest, it's really actually rather specific,
Yes, it is.
right?
Yeah.
And so we need a more specific address. And that's the real problem with the censorship nomenclature. Not necessarily the fact that it's a legal thing and not what people do when they boycott or whatever. Like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but see, censorship and boycott, these are two different terms as well that get
Yeah,
used interchangeably.
absolutely.
And I mean, the issue is people start saying censorship, 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 you're censoring. It's something that everything gets hung on, right? It's like the program crashes right there. Our analytical program crashes. And it's like, well, no, it's
Yes.
not censorship. Well, yes, it is. Well, no, it's not, because censorship is something institutionalized. It's something that
That's
is,
because the internet doesn't understand semantics.
well, and the interesting thing is it's almost a shadow of censorship, right? Because the our cultural touchstones for what
Mhm.
is considered appropriate content is based on the MPAA, which is the Movie Ratings Bureau, which is a government censor. That
Yes.
was implemented by the government. And that has a shadow effect, that has a ripple effect that
Yeah, I agree.
affects the ESRB, which is a voluntary rating system. You can put anything you want in your game, but some stores won't take it, and it all comes. It's almost like a
Oh, it's true.
shadow
And
censorship.
there's echoes from the comics code in that same kind of vein.
It's the exact same thing. And
Yeah.
I mean, one of the big freakouts that was a space story where, I think it was in the 1940s, where the guy took his helmet off and it was a black guy, and this
Uh-huh.
was considered too shocking for respectable people
See,
in.
and going back to what we were saying earlier,
Mhm,
that's great though, because then I can say I can take that panel, I can take that book and say,
mhm.
well, who has a problem with this book? What stores have a problem with this book?
But
And what is your problem with this book? And I understand that there's a general problem,
yeah.
but I really do think that the world of creation is so much smaller that we can address the general through the specific.
Assuming everybody is actually interested in creativity, I mean, that's a big concern about gamers right now, is the cliques in gaming are becoming so strong that there actually is difficulty in, if you do something different, if you come at it. I have been accused of courting controversy just by speaking my honest opinion. I had no idea the opinion was going to be controversial, or I wasn't going to change how I describe something. This is my truth.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
if I feel like, if my truth is controversial, that shouldn't be on me. Like, why is a simple statement of, hey, I happen to have, this is going to make people uncomfortable, and this is part of the problem. I have gigantic boobs.
Mhm.
And I like to play games with women with gigantic boobs because it's the only place I can run really fast without very bad physical side effects. It is escapism. It is a form of wish fulfillment for me. But people freak out when you ask for that sort of inclusivity in your character building tools. And like you were
Right.
saying earlier, I'm not saying every character should
Mhm.
be a large breasted woman. I am, however, exceptionally disappointed that Lara Croft started out that way
Right.
and was altered, was made less overtly feminine to appeal to, like I called it, Caucasian sensibilities.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that bothers me because
It
that
should.
that is changing.
Well, principally, what people are doing that I think is hurting the
Hmm.
art
Hmm.
is they're spending much more time processing what they don't like than they are supporting what they like.
Right. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we're a capitalist society, and if you support what you like, it will find there will be more room on the shelf for it, metaphorically and literally speaking.
Yeah.
You don't have to waste time shouting down stuff that quote unquote offends you. It's just actually not necessary. Because if you want more stuff in the marketplace with a
Right.
certain presence, find creators to do that and support them if you are not one yourself. It's actually really an elegantly simple solution. But that's not what we're dealing with. We're
No.
not dealing with, people analyzing the playing field and saying, well, there's not enough of this. What we're dealing with is bad art making people feel unsafe. And then people are having a fight or flight response to art.
But why is bad art making people feel unsafe as opposed to just going, that's bad art? Like, art can't hurt
Well,
you.
cynically, because we spend too much time online and are too comfortable. This is not something that would be happening
We're
if we
back to the
were at,
first
on
world problems
domestic
thing.
war, right?
Well,
So,
I have found that the more real problems a person has, the less they care about this stuff.
sure, absolutely.
And I mean, that was my experience, is the people that have been through really traumatic situations. I mean, gangster rap is a classic example of that. Is, what are the stories they're telling?
Part of it is also just people actualizing themselves. You see it all the time on Twitch, actually. Someone starts out as a gamer, right?
Hmm.
They're a gamer, they have their problems, they're bitching and moaning, they have all the, they're all Tumblr, Twitter, YouTube, all that stuff, comment section. Then when they start getting their act together, they're streaming certain amount of hours a day, then they get on schedule. They realize they're on camera all the time. Some of them eat a little better,
Hmm.
clean up the room behind them, start dressing up their page a little bit.
Yeah.
They have banners and so on and so forth, and then people are spending time with these people. So then they start realizing there's someone outside of themselves that actually is investing in them.
Right.
That raises their self-esteem, but also raises their level of responsibility.
Yeah.
And the troll factor in that individual gets mitigated.
Yes.
And this is not something that happens to everyone, but it is very common. You see it all the time. You can look at anyone's early Twitch videos and go, and they'll be unrecognizable for a host of reasons.
Hmm.
Part of it being just by actualizing themselves. Other things, because it's an illusion, right?
Yes.
Bad art is not actually threatening you. The worst it can be is propaganda against people
Sure.
of you and your type, right?
And that can cause harm because it's calibrated to shift opinion.
But propaganda only works on the sleeping mind.
Yes.
With the actualized critical thinking, with activated critical thinking, propaganda actually fails because you're analyzing the symbols instead of letting them work on you. Right?
That's very
It's the same
true.
principle as you can't speak and listen at the same time. So you can't analyze and have your subconscious working on breaking down symbols while the symbols retain their power.
It's true. I mean, the thing I like about the advanced stuff I've seen from Romulus is the fact that I look at that teaser image and it's just her and
Yes.
she's, slightly moved forward and you kind of like I'm doing the pose because I'm a cosplayer.
Yeah.
But
That
I feel,
was intentional.
yeah, I feel like I have a sense of who she is, and there hasn't been any description of her. I didn't know she was mixed race, everything like that. But I get a sense of who she is. Just here she is.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's good art. But the minute you say something, I mean, we could start breaking down if that's aggressive. But okay, so she's aggressive. That's great. I mean, she does have an edge to her that I am very interested in. I think we need more female characters drawn in ways that are like that. Everything doesn't have to have a super feminine face. Not everybody has to look like Wonder Woman with a palette swap, right? I like it when they draw Wonder Woman kind of looking Greek too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
seeing,
Absolutely.
different, but other people, especially younger people, are going to look at that and go, that knee jerk, it's ugly. And it's very subjective, and I think that's the difference between, like you were saying, laws and art. Is art, you have to exceedingly please this many people.
Yeah.
Laws, you have to make everybody equally sort of not quite happy, like
Absolutely.
content.
Every choice in art adds more specificity. Civics, by its very definition, is for the populace.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to understand that separation at all times when criticizing art and when forming law, which
So,
is, yeah, good.
so as someone, because they say, the problem with censorship is that it hits the most disenfranchised people first. The so-called advocates for the disenfranchised are taking a change existing content instead of promoting upcoming content. And I agree with you. I think that's a bad way to go because
Yeah.
what we're seeing is just a reduction in the amount of content. I mean, the Assassin's Creed franchise, for instance, I don't know if you play it personally.
Oh, yeah.
But
Huge fan, actually. Shout outs to Stone Chin.
but I mean, I can't think of a series that is more diverse, both in
Oh,
opinion
yeah, for sure.
and location.
I was actually going to bring that up when you talked about Nathan Drake and that point about having this kind of archetype, right? Because not only has Assassin's Creed made a bunch of money, but they had a very brown main character in Desmond for
3
many,
games.
yeah, right?
Well, and Altair was Middle
4.
Eastern as well.
Yeah. So from Assassin's Creed 1 to the Ezio trilogy, you have Desmond the whole time, right?
He went all the way to Assassin's Creed 3.
To 3. There
Yeah,
you go.
so Assassin's Creed 1. So it was Assassin's Creed 3, but it was a 5th game. Good God,
Right.
Ubisoft. But yeah, he went all the way. And then the past,
Yes.
protagonist, one of them, was Native American.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, no one said anything about it because it was all within context.
But
Who- 'Cause
then,
if you play Assassin's Creed, you don't have to ask a question about anyone's ethnicity because historically and settings wise in the present, the story is about genes, right? So when you start out in the Middle East and the guy's a little brown, you go, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. He's at least part
but
Persian
but the
or Arab.
superpower that Desmond had was that his background is so mixed race that his DNA can be mined for all these strands.
Yeah,
And that coasted along, and I felt like the game series got no credit for what it was doing. It just happened because it seemed so organic, like you were saying. The minute there was a controversy about something that was lacking, it
yeah.
seemed like all the attempts they made to tell a good story first but make it a diverse story as well just went out the window, and everybody got freaky about there are no female playable characters in this game. And that was an artistic choice.
Yeah.
It was an artistic choice trying to make a unified play experience so you could jump seamlessly from the single player into the multiplayer with, you're still Arno in
Hmm.
Unity. It was called Unity. It was an experiment. But all that, like when it first started, I had a this is stupid reaction, like of all the series to pick on. I
Yeah.
mean,
Absolutely. No,
Aveline,
you're 100% right.
you
And
know,
also, the thing about Assassin's Creed is because they deal in secret societies that are very close to real life secret societies, they are male. That is part of their exclusivity, right? Like for a lot of them, like for a lot of them, when you look at that's why they are fraternities.
but the other
They're
issue
fraternities and
is
brotherhoods.
assassins and Templars don't die in their sleep. They tend to
Mhm.
die young and they tend to die violently. And
Yeah.
and so the minute you start putting female protagonists in or female antagonists,
Yes.
um, you have to make some gutsy calls.
That's always the dilemma is
Yep.
you want inclusion, but if I include you, are you prepared for the hardships that everyone else has been going
Yeah.
through?
That female sub boss is going to have her animus death scene.
Yes, it's
And
actually I draw a parallel somewhat to the fighting game community because I think certain things in the fighting game community are unfairly branded as sexist
I agree.
when it's just how people are in the fighting game community across the board. There's always this line from, and you can definitely speak on this more so than myself. This line I hear a lot from female gamers that say, to have I don't want to have people ask me, "Are you good at the game?" before they respect that I'm a gamer. I don't want to be
Right.
quizzed on it and so on and so forth. But in the fighting game community, that's what happens to everyone because it comes from a culture of you put your quarter on the machine,
Yeah.
get
Boom.
your turn, right? And if you win, you stay on. And if you don't, you were a waste of a turn. I could have been playing while you were sitting here feeding quarters
Yeah.
to Justin
Yeah.
Wong or Eddie Lee or what have you.
Well, also
And so
sucking is expensive in
sucking, right,
arcade. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that rite of passage is a natural evolution of what the game is in and of itself. And
Yeah.
as a result, the person who has spent hours on the machine gets more respect than the person who spent $10 and 1 hour in the arcade.
Yeah.
It's just how it is.
Yeah.
So if you've been on a win streak, you do get treated differently.
Sure.
And then as more and more people get on win streaks and become part of that crowd that plays the game at a higher level, they have their own community that builds. And if you're not in that community, if you're a scrub,
Yeah.
you have to work your way into that community. It's not if you're a boy scrub or a girl scrub or a black scrub or a white scrub. It's just if you're a scrub.
Still a scrub. Yeah.
You're still a scrub,
Yeah.
and we don't respect you until we see that you've gone through because it's hard. Like
Yeah.
spending that money and losing and getting humiliated,
Yeah.
having someone get a perfect on you and
I have
troll you and throw you.
I have dents in my thumbs from the
Yeah.
Cannon Street Fighter 2.
Right?
Like
It
it's
doesn't
there.
feel good. Like, that's one of the reasons. I think a lot of gamers don't experience that because a lot of games are easy now, and a lot of the games are only competitive at like the highest level when they're having tournaments. So
That's my issue with esports
yeah,
is that community. Um, you know, games have gone from the backyard basketball game
yeah,
where it was four kids in a ball. It was 2-on-2, You didn't even have a net on the rim. It was bent. It was crappy. It was rusted, but it was accessible. Any kid could go down there and play. And if you're me, dislocate your fingers guarding under the net. That's why I don't guard under the net. But now it's this elite esport. You need $120 controller and this lag-free mouse and keyboard. And I'm like, there is money in it, and I reckon people jump on me for saying esports is a gimmick, but it is a gimmick. It is not a sport. It is a game, and professional gaming, fine. Yeah. Esports is trying to gain, the branding is trying to gain the approval of the jocks. And yes. I don't like that, because I mean, my sister used to do that Chun Li head stomp exploit on me over and over. We still joke about it, because she always picked the girl, and it was an easy move, right? Yeah. It was jump up button. It was an easy move to perform. It was very difficult to block. Some characters couldn't even block it because it was from above. You had high block, low block. There was no straight up above block, right? So you had to get like Guile and do the kick.
Yeah, flash kick.
And it became very repetitive because it was the only way to beat the move. Mm-hmm. But that was her idea of enjoyment. She liked playing as the girl and beating up.
Well, you know what happens is what I love about any hardcore game is that it has a similarity to like a musical instrument, where you get out of it what you put into it.
This is an interesting metaphor.
Okay.
Because I come at the same metaphor from the other perspective.
Oh, please do.
Okay. When I was a kid, tenor saxophone. That was my tenor saxophone and drums. Mm-hmm. Drums were the only instrument in my junior high school you had to audition for, because if your rhythm section sucked, your entire band was screwed. That's right?
Still true. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I was the only female percussionist, not just in my grade, but in my junior high school. I was one of 2 female saxophone players. All the girls were on flute and clarinet. A few did trumpet, but most of them were on flute, the dainty instruments, right? And a well-designed fighting game doesn't have that. And I think this is something that isn't understood. If you compare fighting characters to instruments, because a lot of people don't realize the weapons and the fighting styles tend to be designed first, and then they put the characters in. I would consider a character like Talim or Chun Li early on as a wind instrument, as a flute, as a clarinet.
Yeah.
The well-designed fighting games also have the Miko or the Ivy Valentine, they are bass notes. They play like tanks. They are long reach, slow to get going, combo-driven characters.
Absolutely.
And they're hard to play. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed about Soul Calibur is they took the fan servicey character, the dominatrix style character, and gave her, she's a difficult character to play. Yeah. I tend to jump around in Soul Calibur, but I think I played Raphael more than I played. Yeah. Well, he's a snot, and I find it kind of funny, but I like his riposte style, and I like his weapons in Soul 3 and 4. The weapon swap outs, they were more meaningful than some of the other characters. But that's, I think, an element of fighting games that people don't understand. They see these designs, and they don't realize that, yes, you do have your little flute, Talon with the wind sort of thing, right? But then you get Ivy, and she's a deliberate punch in the face. As Chun Li, it's the whole thick-legged Chun Li thing. Yeah. That there are 2 types of people in this world: people who understand thick-legged Chun Li, and people who don't play fighting games. But her combat style has evolved as well, because now she's the more, she's the people say thick, they think I'm thinking physical, but the way she plays is thicker, because they added Cammy and Sea Viper, and they're a little quicker. Yeah. Right? She became the female Ryu or Ken.
Well, Chun-Li's a hybrid now. What they
Yeah.
did to Chun now is she's very much what you described in terms of she's actually a little closer to Ivy in a sense. She's a very hard character to play
Yeah.
in Street Fighter V. Some of the most technical fighters in
Yep.
the fighting game community, Sako and Ricky Ortiz, are playing that character and have not mastered her yet. They're like, we're just stuck in training mode trying to get this down.
But
When
see,
most of the characters are really, really easy to play, and she is not a lot of the characters in Street Fighter V are big damage characters that
yeah.
get big damage in a certain spot.
Yeah.
Whereas she is more, she creates a lot of opportunities,
Right.
but only moderate damage. Not bad damage, but only moderate
But
damage.
not like in Street Fighter 2 where she barely did anything and you had
No.
to hit them. She was fast and she was easy to figure out how to play, but she
Yeah.
was very much the character for that scrub. And
Yeah.
that's where I was sort of going with it. She was the scrub character and the assumption was, oh yeah, you put the character in. It was girlfriend mode of
Hmm.
fighting games. They picked
Right.
a woman to be the scrub character because they assumed that the girls were going to pick that, and sure enough my sister did. And so I'm like, all right,
Well, they did that with
there's
Americans too. They put in Guile because they didn't think Americans could do reuse fireball motion.
well, it was hard. I mean, I had tape on my thumbs. So it's different
Yeah.
when you've got the joystick, right?
Yeah.
It's much easier on your
Yeah,
hands.
those Super Nintendo pads are rough on it though.
Yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat was the same way. The back and forth motion was, but I mean, they changed it up because Katana, I found a more difficult character to play than Melina.
Yeah.
But you know, it didn't push towards the princess
Right.
mindset, and I like that about Street Fighter is they have made Chun Li their, you know, she is up there with Ryu and
Oh
Ken
yeah, she's a woman.
as, yeah, she's Wonder Woman,
She's
exactly.
absolutely a woman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Wonder Woman, I mean, a properly designed Wonder Woman fighter, she's a tank. She can throw a
Oh yeah.
punch. She can land some damage.
She's widely
Whereas
considered the best character in the game, actually.
Chun Li or Wonder
Yeah,
Woman in
Chun Li is widely. Wonder Woman wasn't bad in the original Injustice, but yeah, Chun Li is widely considered the best character in the game.
when you learn how to use her.
Yes, which takes a very long time.
And I see, I like that. I like that they're not making these characters scrub characters anymore. I like that you're, and I feel this way about Metroid in the bikini as well.
Yeah.
They're encouraging players to develop a relationship with these avatars. And I mean, let's face it.
It's kind of meta, right?
Well, it being easy on the eyes is all right, but you got to earn it. Like especially with Samus and some of those you know, in Bayonetta, in order to see your underwear, you got to get good at the combos because
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, the clothing, the witch vision doesn't kick in
Yeah.
unless you're really racking it up. And the problem is these games are being analyzed via box art.
Hmm.
And I got really bothered when the whole Hot Ryu thing happened.
Really?
Because I went, if this was a woman, if this was a
Oh,
woman
yeah.
and a bunch of dudes were going, oh, she's hot, the very people who are going, oh, Hot Ryu would be going, oh, that's so, you know, that's my voice. That's the,
I like it.
that's so, you know, but that's an A Living Color character. I just went men on film.
No, I love it. I'm glad we found Liana's cringe character.
Yeah, but yeah, that's my cringe character. But it's because I've seen that reaction. You know, I'll be like, "Oh, sweet, that's an amazing," and I won't even be able before I can feel it. I can feel the whole. It's a zoom in, pull out. Like I'm on my own on this one, aren't I? And I turn around and it's that, like somebody just like Tina Fey said, somebody just smeared poo on the, and it's like that's sexist.
Right.
And then stupid me, because I can't help it, because the gamer comes out on me instead of my sense of self-preservation. The get good comes out. Own it, prove it, right? Put your quarter down. You say something sexist, put your quarter down. And I'm like, well, why? Well, because look at it. It's like, I am. My eyes work. Why? Well, she's large. I said, be careful. Like, think about who you're talking. Well, that's different. You don't. Well, yes, I do. And people can't explain. People have been trained to say that's sexist, or in other words, in other places, that's racist. I mean, Uncharted got a lot of flack for being a racist game.
Really? I didn't know that. I didn't hear that one.
Well, because he's white, and a lot of this is his catch. If the enemies hadn't been people of color.
Oh, it's the
Be-
Resident Evil thing. Yeah.
because of where it takes place in the world. Like if you go
Yeah.
down to, I went down to Panama and I'm on the tour going, this is just like an Uncharted. It
Right.
does
Right.
look exactly like that. But the people of Panama are very dark by Latino standards because
Yeah.
they
Sure.
brought workers in from Haiti to finish
Mhm.
the canals, and there was intermingling, and kids were
Yeah.
produced, and so they are quite dark. And the game got criticized because it was a white hero slaughtering dozens and dozens and dozens of people of color.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but if they'd all been white, you know, you would have been complaining. And it's funny to me because a character like what was his name, Eddie something, in the first Uncharted, the sidekick, he fulfills structurally the exact same role in Uncharted 1 as Vas Montenegro does in Far Cry 3.
Yeah.
He's the secondary boss. He's
Hmm.
he's gone mid game, and then but everybody's like, oh, Vas is such a great character. It's like, why? Because he's more of a cartoon.
Right.
And then it becomes
Well,
very
and that's
uncomfortable.
and I talked to some of my friends about this, like some of my creative friends,
Mhm.
is it's very difficult to reconcile the criticism with the fact that if you're a storyteller and you study structure, there are certain things that you automatically absorb as information.
Hmm.
You have to understand that, and this is not talking down to anyone, it's really the experience people are supposed to have.
Hmm.
They're just reacting emotionally to what they see without seeing the structure right away. It's like if I watch NASCAR, I don't automatically know anything about those cars.
Right.
So I'm just seeing who comes in first.
Right.
Whereas people who know what's going on with the cars, they have this entirely different perspective. And so I can say something about that driver that I feel is true that has nothing to do with it because I just don't know enough about the car.
But your
And
perspective is still valid. It's
well, my emotional perspective
right.
is valid,
Right.
but analytically, it might be skewed because that information is important for context,
Okay,
right?
last
So,
last
so I think the structural information that you get right away,
right.
you can look at two completely different characters and see the role that the archetype is playing on
Right.
like the Campbellian wheel,
Uh-huh.
and divorce that from the surface, aspects, the aesthetics of the character.
Of course.
Everybody's not doing that though.
Right.
And
Okay.
you see what I'm saying? And so it's very hard to have the dual mentality going on, the dichotomy of, okay, I'm gonna watch this as a storyteller and then I'm gonna watch it and try to turn all of that off. It's very difficult.
It is. It is.
It's
And you
like
don't want
not
to.
reading a bunch of letters in sequence. You have if you're literate, you kind of have to read.
You don't want to be constantly analyzing. You want a story to be able to take you over. That's what I love about the Saints Row games. I just enjoy
Yeah.
those games.
Oh, for sure.
And
Absolutely.
eventually I'll start breaking them down and start, looking at the mechanics and things like that. But they're just so I get my character that looks like Nicki Minaj and we just go. Like it's funny and it's fun and I'm
Yeah, I
playing
love
it.
that about those games. I
Oh,
love
they're so
they got
I
really good at doing that.
and I think they're so underrated
I
compared to Grand Theft Auto. And I
I thought
just
Saints Row 2 was better than Grand Theft Auto 4.
well, that was the game when Saints Row found its own identity, right?
Yes.
As much as everybody dumps on Shondi in
Yeah.
that game, that whole self-awareness of her smoking crack out of a broken light bulb, I think was where the game found its
I'm
feet.
all about fun, Shondi.
Well, I
I don't know about corporate responsible Shondi. I
I
like fun
love
Shondi a lot.
see, I don't think you can separate them.
No, that's like the meta of Saints Row 4, right?
But that's what's so amazing
Yeah,
about it is that you don't and calling her fun Shondi
yeah,
is
yeah.
is deliberate.
It's so great. It's
Yeah.
like really, yeah,
But yeah, it's her before one of her best friends got killed. Like,
yeah.
yes, you become less fun when that happens. But I
And then
like
she realizes fun Shondi's repressed, and she has to deal with that in the meta of the game. That's so crazy. It's just so good. Like that's
and
such good work.
and I just
For such
like
a silly game. It's such good work.
I just like that whether you're male or whether you're female, there's still strippers in the White House at the
Yeah, yeah,
beginning of Saints Row 4. Whether you're male or whether you're female, you're still doing the Armageddon thing on the
yeah,
rocket with the Aerosmith playing at the beginning of that game. It is such a brilliant, we're going to let you pick your gender. And I mean, in Saints Row, you can have a male voice and a female body. It's
Hmm.
open character creation tools. They don't lock it off. But I just love the fact that male or female, that character is still the leader of the Saints,
Oh yeah.
which means they're still doing drugs and running hoes. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that is the
And
whole.
they've really invested into both the characters too, to like really give them a voice.
Yeah.
It's funny because what I love about the female Saints Row lead character is she's kind of dumb,
Yeah.
but she's also awesome.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. I
whenever
noticed
she's
that
not in
too.
her wheelhouse, she's like, "Yeah, you do this. I'm just
Yeah.
going to shoot people in the face."
Kenzie, English. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Does
so good.
not. Yeah. Does
But she's
not
not ashamed of
understand.
it. She doesn't. She's not lacking in qualities. She is in power in her qualities.
But there's a classic example of a female character that they didn't feel needed to be good at everything. She is a
Absolutely.
thug,
Right.
right? She is a thug. She is every character on Empire in the same body.
Yeah.
Like, pretty much. There's so much thug in that character. But they don't need her to be super smart, and they don't need her to be great at computers. And she is somebody, just like he is, who likes tricked out cars
Yeah.
and loud 90s music
Mm-hmm.
and the
Those
soundtrack.
sing-alongs absolutely
But
broke
the
me.
soundtrack selection, I mean, on the
Oh,
one
crazy. I
hand,
think Opus was in that game. God, ridiculous.
well, but at one moment it's like they do a sing along to
Like,
"This
Tell Me
Is
I'm
How
Good.
We Do It,"
Oh yeah, so
right?
good. Straight up now, tell me. I think they did a sing-along too.
But I realized I had never really listened to that song before I played Saints Row.
Really?
I had never really listened to the lyrics, and I'm like, damn.
Right.
Like,
Right. Right.
there's a reason that's the dance off song.
Absolutely.
Because to me, that encapsulates escapist entertainment for marginalized peoples.
Mhm.
Is that all most people take from that song is, "This is how we do it," right?
Right.
The hook. But what it's actually about is escaping poverty through party.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
And I had never, and I mean, that was just a song that was always on. It was everywhere. And you tend to tune out those songs and they're monster hits. And it wasn't until the context of playing that game as a gangster
Yeah.
that the
Yes.
lyrics hit.
Yeah.
Because that's the context that song wasn't intended to be about.
It's like the actual fantasy of the song
Well,
in the
and-
video game to a degree.
And it was the whole idea of art bringing peace to neighborhoods like South Central. And I'm like, damn, this is a really profound party tune. And
Yeah.
what a subversive piece
Right.
of art. And I think games and populist entertainment don't get enough credit. So we got to wrap here. 'Cause I'm
Saints
gonna
Row
flip this-
definitely doesn't get enough credit. 'Cause
No.
you're absolutely right. Like all of that is so high level in a game that never distracts you with its perspective.
And there's so many social issues with
Absolutely.
that game. You can be a transgender character in
Oh
that
yeah,
game.
Pierce
You-
is gay.
Well, not just gay though. You can change from male to female within the game. You can go to a plastic surgeon and
Oh,
swap
yeah.
bodies.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like the way they handled Pierce's homosexuality, like he just
Well,
was gay.
you can
Like-
kiss as a dude. You can kiss Johnny Gat.
Oh, I didn't know you could kiss Johnny Gat.
I did it just to see what would happen. I'm like, he is
What?
going to punch my lights out because there's a whole
Yeah.
Mass Effect parody in 4,
Yeah.
right? I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
I'm scared. I saved my game. I was actually scared. I'm like, oh my god, Johnny Gat's gonna beat the shit out of it because he's the most terrifying man in the universe,
for
right?
sure, for sure.
It becomes this big, like, he grabs it, he jumps you, and it's like this whole, like, damn, they made the most dangerous dude in the universe a bisexual Asian dude.
Wow, that's awesome.
And
And
it's
that
this,
voice is it Daniel?
it's
Who's
Daniel Day Kim.
Daniel Day Kim.
Yeah.
Such a great job. Such
Yeah.
a great job, Johnny Gat.
And I love that character because it is, I mean, somebody thinking less outside the box would just be like, we're gonna make him Oleg. I mean,
See,
that would be the stereotypical.
And to touch on
choice,
that
right?
point, right? Like we're having a lot of discussions in social media about Asian roles and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
This video game made its most badass motherfucker
Yeah.
a bisexual Asian dude, and no one blinked an eye.
Nope.
Like no one said that is not a headline. It's not on Kotaku or anything like that. Johnny Gat simply is. He is like water.
Yeah.
That dude is an element in the universe.
Well, I mean, yeah, so many things in that game just were.
Yeah,
it's so brilliant that way. They have managed to make a world so well developed and so flexible that you you do a fight with a giant energy drink can named Paul, and
yeah,
this seems normal.
yeah.
And then, I mean, a profound moment I talk about a lot. I think it was in Saints Row 3. Yeah, where the public turns on the Saints
Hmm.
and suddenly starts carrying these signs. Shandy is a whore.
Yeah.
And I don't normally run over pedestrians, but I could. So I floored it. I got the biggest damn truck with the spike rims, and I just ran those sons of bitches over. Because you don't talk that way about my
No,
friends.
for Shandi.
But it's Shandy.
Right.
You don't say that. Like, woman's
Yeah.
been through a lot. But I mean, that's that moment where people will go, "Oh, that's inspiring violence in you." It's like, no, it's allowing me to express loyalty in a sandbox.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know?
it's inspiring violence in a video game.
Well, it's
Listen, this is one of those things that bugs me, Liana. Some of these games sell millions and millions and millions of copies.
mm-hmm.
Mathematically, if they made people more violent, we'd be in a civil war. It's just absurd.
Yeah,
I don't know how many Call of Duty's the like #1 media property of anything, right?
yeah,
It's like bigger than Harry Potter and like Avengers or some shit like that. If Call of Duty, which is, a pro-war super violent game,
yeah.
had any effect on anyone, we'd be in a really different world right now.
You know
All it
what?
does is make you eat more carby snacks.
You know what measurable impact Call of Duty has had?
What's that?
Increased military enlistment
Yeah. Well,
in not just the U.S. but also the UK. The UK, but that I don't think that's a bad thing
Mhm.
because that's what Call of Duty encourages you to identify with is you're identifying with the truths of war, and if people are going anything that can humanize a war veteran,
Yeah.
I think is a good thing because I
Yeah,
think
I will say overall, anyone playing video games should be aware of propagandic messages, like, right. So
yeah.
that's a thing. But
Well, Bulletstorm made fun of it.
look at it like this, though. For all of the people who enlisted who play Call of Duty,
Hmm.
that still leaves probably 99% of the rest of the people playing Call of Duty who are not enlisting.
I
Because there
think
are that many people playing Call of Duty.
I think also these are people who were already considering enlisting.
For
This
sure.
was just the little nudge that they needed, and it would have been the same thing. I mean, the U.S. Army goes down there and sets up recruitment booths on
Hmm.
spring break
Yes.
down in Florida. It's the same thing. They're trying to get somebody who's probably lost. They're looking for purpose.
Hmm.
They're getting that young man, and it is stereotypical, but this is who they're aiming for. They're getting that young man who's vulnerable. He's just been shot down by the ninth girl. He feels like his life isn't going anywhere.
He needs college money.
Yeah, he needs the GI Bill, but joining the military seems like a good idea at that moment. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing because the military can give direction to people and whether you agree with the specific wars we're fighting right now or not. That's people want to make a judgment call on that, and I don't think that it is a negative thing that Call of Duty increases military recruitment. Because let's face it, nobody is stigmatizing video games for making more kids join the army.
Right. Which is the double-edged sword, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's they associate it with those 8 different groups of kids who are already troubled, who
Yeah.
played Grand Theft Auto and then went and knocked over stores and some people got killed. The reality is that I talk to cops about the Fast and the Furious series. They have the exact same problems with those movies. Is they need to. There's a particular theater out in people will laugh. It's out in Woodbridge. Anybody who knows anything about Toronto, of course it is.
Mhm.
But that's where there's a lot of illegal street racing.
Yeah.
And so they have police cars just stationed all over that neighborhood because they know that they're going to get into the late show of one of the Fast and the Furious movies and they're going to want to start doing dumb
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just adrenaline poisoning.
Well, yeah, it's just like when I took my brother to see The Matrix and we came out doing kung fu at each other.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
yeah, sure, right? Like that's a thing that happens. But the idea, see, but that's not what they're arguing. They're saying that playing a video game changes a person who's not a criminal
That's
into
right.
a is a
That's
crime.
right. And
Playing a video game which takes a person who's not a racist or not a sexist can make them a sexist. And showing women this way will, yeah, showing big breasts in a video game will make this sexual crime happen. And that's patently absurd.
well, there's not only is there no evidence to support it, there's actually evidence that a sizable body of evidence that refutes that
Right.
theory. And
'Cause
like
it's
you said, well, it all goes down to gaze and cultivation theory that doesn't really apply to an interactive art form.
right. Well, see, and that's an interesting thing that you bring up, and because when you get so up in arms about some of these social issues,
Hmm.
you miss the work that needs to be done for this new interactive art form. If I were just simply, if my job was video game analysis, every single technological innovation would require a new budget for a year's worth of work of
It
analysis.
does. It
Like
really does.
Rumble Physics, Connect, PlayStation Eye, VR, every single first person versus third person, like everything would be like, we really have to figure out what's going on because this is so new. This simulated world that people can get into is
Yep.
so we don't know, and that's the arrogance of some of our social politics. Is everybody's so sure that they're right, but the thing is, the work needs to be done
Hmm.
about all of this stuff, which is why I say trust the one thing that you can trust, which is making stuff and trying to make it good. Make stuff, make it good, find the people that you think this relates to, and then if something is unfair about monetizing that thing, trust me, capitalism will find a way to make money off of you. It'll happen. It'll be all good. We're just too greedy to not make money for an abstract reason like you have breasts or you're gay or you're black. Eventually, someone will decide, you know what, the money I can make off of you, that will be mine. But if you're not making stuff, if you're just talking about making stuff, you have not added a value to anything. And if you're out there protesting and boycotting against other people's stuff, you're trying to take value out of the overall creative industry instead of adding value to the people that you would support. And that's where I think we're most misguided on a lot of these issues, beyond the fact that critical thinking is not usually being applied in enough amounts.
So we could talk about this for 4 more hours. I have to wrap it up. I think we're gonna have to split it into two sections. Like amazing insights. I knew this was gonna be good. I had no idea, how insightful you were
Oh,
gonna
thanks so much. I
be.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's nice to talk to an artist
Yeah.
because analysts swing a stick. You'll hit six analysts, and I say this as somebody who does both. I'm better known as an analyst, but to just have a conversation with another creative person and sort of jam on this stuff. I think there's, and you guys could say so in the comments, but my comments are nice. Fortunately, we work very hard on our comments
Awesome.
here. But there's a cathartic quality just listening to two creative people
Absolutely.
talk about stuff.
It's always fun to woodshop.
And then we spent 20 minutes talking about how awesome Saints Row is, which
Hey, you know what? If you don't like that, you just have to hold that one, or go play Saints Row so you can enjoy what we enjoyed.
it was just on
There's a
sale
slice of
too.
cake for you.
It comes
Yeah,
on
it was
sale
like
every so often.
an Xbox Live Gold game or something like that.
I was on a Steam sale. They do a
Oh,
Saints Row franchise sale every so often. I think because they're trying to get people into this game, they got to have another one coming soon. I mean, it's
I hope so.
time. And it was such a tease the way they left the last game. But for people who aren't creatives and can't make stuff, this is where we'll leave it. The last question, and you sort of have the floor on this. If someone isn't a creative, they can't make stuff. How do they help the industry and the community in both comics and games move in the right direction as opposed to the wrong one?
Well, I'll answer that twofold. One, the number one thing is always to vote with your dollars.
Okay.
Support the stuff that you can afford to support. If you're watching somebody on Twitch for 8 hours a day, throw a donation at those people.
Mm-hmm.
Help them out. Retweet their stuff. Help them out. If you want comics about a certain thing, look for those comics. Find out who those creators are. Support their stuff. Retweet with the tumblers. Buy those books. Actually buy them. And when you retweet it, talk about the story. Talk about what's good about it. Don't talk about how it satisfies your politics. That's not important. The characters are important. The story is important. The other thing I would say is if you have it in you to say more than that, if you don't just want to be rah rah, this is really cool, get into critical analysis and become a legit critic. We have plenty of decent artists and writers out there. We could always use more, but we have a pretty good crew. But our critical analysis in gaming and in comics is suffering, is struggling. If you are a student of film or a student of literature, you know that gaming and comics are way behind in critical analysis. There should be a treatise on Shawnee. You know,
I
there should
did
be
one.
right?
I did one on YouTube. I did.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, let me.
I'll have to link you to it. It's a video just on Shandi because I'm like,
I
no,
got one out. I
people
haven't
need to
seen that.
understand.
So yeah, so there should be other treatises on other characters that Liana hasn't done. Liana shouldn't be doing this stuff alone. We need more critics out there adding integrity to this stuff because whatever group you're from, the way you're gonna win is via a meritocracy. And meritocracies don't work similar to democracies unless you have an educated public.
Mic drop. Great place to leave it. Nelson Blake the second, guys. They can check you out on your Tumblr.
Yeah, Tumblr or Twitter, find me there. If you put Nelson Blake II in Google, all my stuff comes up.
Cool.
But,
And we'll put your Twitter handle,
yeah.
even though that may or may not be you. In joke,
Yeah.
guys. In joke, guys. But and then Romulus is coming in the fall, and I'm sure we'll be doing some coverage on that closer to the event because I'm excited about this book, and I think, like you said, let's talk about what's good and let's sort of break down. We've gotten you as a person now. Let's revisit it when it's time to look at your work.
Absolutely, absolutely, and when we'll be doing Romulus updates on like my Tumblr and Brian's Tumblr. If you guys follow me, you'll eventually follow Brian. I'll put his stuff up. So we'll be having artwork and all that stuff. And my primary service is to draw pictures for people to enjoy. So it's not for you guys to hear me talk crap about what's wrong in the social politics of things. But this is a great forum to do that. And Liana, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being with us.
Not a problem.